That's right, everybody. It is NFL Week 7 recap, hosted by me. Let's go! To start off, we have the Broncos destroying the Saints on Thursday Night Football 33-10. I'm going to be honest with you, I regret watching this game because it was incredibly boring. Because both quarterbacks did not have a single touchdown pass. I mean, Bo Nix, he played good, I guess. Meanwhile, Spencer Rattler, he was really shaky the entire game. And also, shout out to Javonte Williams for having 14 carries for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Sean Payton got revenge on his old team, which is impressive, I guess. And I feel bad for Drew Brees for witnessing this monstrosity of a game. So, congrats, Denver, I guess. And as for New Orleans, they have lost 5 straight games. Right when they won against Dallas, everybody was saying that New Orleans was contenders, but it turns out their awesome start was just a flash in the pan. So New Orleans is fraud. But still, congrats to Denver, I guess. Next up, we have the Jaguars winning against the Patriots in London, 32-16. I'm going to be real with you. I didn't watch a single moment from this game because I knew Jacksonville was going to win. And also, shout out to Brian Thomas for having a good day, who had 5 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown, and he scored on a 2-point conversion. And also, Tank Bigsby, if I'm pronouncing that right, had 26 carries for 118 yards and 2 TDs. And the biggest highlight of the game was Parker Washington's 96-yard punt return that gave Jacksonville a 12-point lead after Brian Thomas Jr. scored on the 2-point conversion. And meanwhile, New England never threat again. So yeah, congratulations, Jacksonville, for winning in London, even though you guys kind of technically live there since you play there every year. Next up, we have the Lions winning against the Vikings 31-29. Wow, this game was incredible, to say the least. Both teams played really good, and it was back and forth the entire way through. Detroit played really well, which is honestly no surprise. And Minnesota, they did what they could to keep it competitive, but didn't pull out with a win. But both teams did really good and are currently on top in the NFC North. So yeah, both quarterbacks did really well, and also both running backs. And shout out to Jahmyr Gibbs for having 15 carries for 116 yards and 2 TDs. And the biggest play of the game was Ivan Pace Jr.'s 36 fumble return that gave Minnesota the lead, but the 2-point conversion was no good, and the game ended with Jake Bates, who used to be in the UFL, by the way, nailed the game-winning field goal with 15 seconds left to give Detroit the win. So congratulations, Detroit, for pulling off another incredible win. Next up, we have the Bills winning against the Titans 34-10. It was a typical Bills win, honestly. And I'm not saying that as an insult, but it's just the truth. Josh Allen, once again, had a good game, which is not saying a whole lot. He had 21 for 33, 323 yards, and 2 TDs. And also, the biggest play of the game was Amari Cooper's first catch, which was a 12-yard pass from Josh Allen to have him score his first touchdown as a Buffalo Bill. And honestly, I'm happy that he went to the Buffalo Bills because we all know he wasn't going to win anything important with the Cleveland Browns. And you know that's a fact. And also, James Cook came back from injury and he scored a 11-yard run in the second quarter. And yeah, the Bills basically held Tennessee scoreless in the entire second half, and which give Buffalo the victory. So, congrats Buffalo for getting a win, and Tennessee is screwed. Next up, we have the Colts winning against the Dolphins 16-10. You won't believe this, but the Colts didn't even score a single touchdown pass and still won the game. The only touchdown that was scored by Indy was Tyler Goodson's 7-yard run, which gave Indy a tie game in the third quarter. And also shout out to Matt Gay for scoring not one, not two, but 3 field goals. And Indy needed all of them to win against Miami. And speaking of Miami, things were looking pretty good for them for the first 2 quarters, but everything quickly collapsed in the second half, where Indy held them scoreless in the third and fourth quarter. And yeah, Indy wins, and yeah, that's all I can say. And don't worry, Dolphins fans. Tua Tagovailoa will be back next week against Arizona, so you guys should get right back on track. And as for Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson is back from injury, and he put up good but not great numbers when he led in passing yards and rushing yards. And yeah, that's all I can say. So congrats, Colts, for getting a win. Next up, we have the Seahawks winning against the Falcons 34-14. Wow, Seattle. Not bad for a win. As you can clearly tell, Seattle had Atlanta's number pretty much the majority of the game. And the biggest play was DK Metcalf's 31-yard bomb from Geno Smith to give Seattle a 17-7 lead just before halftime with 4 seconds left. And meanwhile, Atlanta can only score 1 touchdown in the second half, which was from Drake London, and Atlanta didn't score after that. And also, shout out to Derek Hall for scoring on a 36 fumble return that really killed any hope for Atlanta in this game. And yeah, Seahawks, their team is pretty good offensively and defensively. That reminds me of that one era for Seattle in the 2010s. If you know, you know. But still, congrats, Seattle, for getting a win, and good luck for the rest of the season, because you're going to need it. Next up, we have the Packers upsetting the Texans 24-22. Wow, this is a really entertaining game, to say the least. And you're not going to believe this, but CJ Stroud played terrible, and somehow the Texans still managed to make it a close game. I mean, I really like CJ Stroud, but man, it's surprising that he had a terrible game. Meanwhile, Joe Mixon, he had a really nice game for having 25 carries for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, on the Green Bay side, Jordan Love had some good stats. 24 for 33, 220 yards, 3 TDs, and 2 INTs. And the biggest highlight of this game was Brandon McManus's game-winning 45-yard field goal as time expires to give Green Bay the win. And they needed that to pull off this amazing win over Houston. So, good job, Green Bay, for shocking pretty much everybody that was rooting against you, honestly. And yes, that includes me. But still, congrats, Green Bay, for getting off to a really good start this season. Honestly, I did not expect Green Bay's record to be respectable after Jordan Love got hurt in week 1. They are legit, and they should be contenders as long as they have really good offensive players and defensive players that are healthy. As for Houston, it is a tough loss, but they should be fine, honestly. Next up, we have the Bengals winning against the Browns 21-14. Joe Burrow has finally got a win in Cleveland. About time, too. And also, one quick thing. Cleveland fans, how dare you cheer for Deshaun Watson when he got hurt? I mean, I get he's a terrible person and also a terrible quarterback, but that is still no excuse to cheer for someone getting hurt, especially when they tore their Achilles. But as for Deshaun Watson, he got hurt on a no-contact play, and now he's out for the entire season. And DTR took his place, and now he's hurt as well. So now the Browns will probably start Jameis Winston or Bailey Zappi. Yes, the Browns signed Bailey Zappi a few days ago. Surprising, I know. Meanwhile, for the Bengals, Joe Burrow once again had great stats. 15 for 25, 181 yards, and 2 TDs. I felt like he could have done more better in this game. He did take a lot of sacks, which kind of killed him from putting up even better stats. But hey, he got the job done, so yeah, that's something. And also, shout out to Nick Chubb for coming back from his injury and scoring a touchdown. And the biggest highlight of this game was Charlie Jones's 100-yard kick return for a TD on the first play of the game. Unbelievable. Charlie Jones is one of the most underrated members on our team, honestly. And also, Jamar Chase also had a touchdown, and so did T. Higgins. So, pay them, guys. Pay them. Stop putting T. Higgins on franchise tag and pay him. And also sign Jamar Chase to hopefully a big contract. Because the dude is elite. But still, good for the Bengals for pulling up this win. And also, I hope Deshaun Watson makes a full recovery. Because as much as I hate him, I hate to see someone get hurt like that. And I'm wishing the best for him, even if he is a terrible person. And also DTR, considering that he's out with a finger injury. So good luck with Bailey Zappi or Jameis Winston, Cleveland fans. Next up, we have the Eagles crushing the Giants 20-3. No offense to the Falcons. Yeah, the Eagles just completely mopped the floor with the Giants. And Saquon Barkley got revenge on his old team, which is good for him because he's not expected to win anything in a Giants uniform. And also, the biggest highlight of this game was A.J. Brown's 41-yard bomb from Jalen Hurts to give Philadelphia a 14-0 lead in the second quarter. And in the second half, it was all Jalen Hurts by scoring on 2 tush pushes that give Philly the 28-3 victory. And yeah, the Eagles just completely dominated the Giants. Because look at this. The Eagles dominated in total yards, passing yards, rushing yards, and yards per play. Mainly because Daniel Jones is garbage. You guys are paying him $40 million because he won one playoff game, and that was his only good season. And the rest of his seasons as New York starter was just completely terrible. He didn't even throw a single touchdown pass, or didn't even score a single touchdown, honestly. And didn't even crack over 100 yards. And yeah, that's all I can say about this game. So, congrats, Philly, for getting a win. Next up, we have the Rams winning against the Raiders 20-15. Wow, this game was just awful. As you can clearly tell, neither quarterback had a touchdown pass. They only threw interceptions. Gardner Minshew had 3 interceptions, where Stafford only had 1. And the biggest star of this game was easily Kyren Williams. 21 carries for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, for the Raiders, the only points that were scored all day was from Daniel Carlson, aka their kicker. He did basically everything when it comes to scoring wise for the Raiders. And they only held Los Angeles to 1 touchdown and still lost the game. And the biggest highlight of the game was Cam Curl's 33-yard fumble return that gave LA a 14-3 lead. And as for Daniel Carlson, I'm going to give him props for nailing every single field goal because he did all the heavy lifting. And you know how hard it is to be a kicker and having your offense not score anything while you are doing the only heavy lifting? That takes some guts, honestly. But as for the Rams, good job, I guess. I mean, you guys won against a team that didn't even score a single touchdown. So like whatever, I guess. Next up, we have the Commanders destroying the Panthers 40-7. And before I review this game, I want to wish Andy Dalton a full recovery because recently he was involved in a terrifying car accident. And thankfully he survived, and I'm wishing him a full recovery. And yes, I'm a Bengals fan saying this because I really like the guy because Andy is a nice guy, isn't he? And yeah, I'm just wishing him a full recovery, and I'm happy that he's alive and well. But as for the game itself, Washington completely destroyed Carolina, which is honestly no surprise. But the biggest surprise is when Jane Daniels left the game early with a rib injury, leading way to Marcus Mariota, who had a pretty good game, honestly. 18 for 23, 205 yards, and 2 TDs. And the biggest play of the game was Dante Fuller Jr.'s 67-yard pick six to give Washington their first touchdown of the day. And outside of the Chuba Hubbard touchdown in the fourth quarter, it was all Washington. So yeah, congrats Washington for getting the win, and shout out to Marcus Mariota for pulling off a impressive win for Washington. Next up, we have the Chiefs winning against the 49ers again, 28-18. This Super Bowl rematch was incredibly boring, honestly. The Chiefs win, shocker, and the 49ers still couldn't be able to defeat Mahomes. And both quarterbacks just keep throwing interceptions. Mahomes, it's honestly no surprise considering that he throw an interception every game this season. Meanwhile, for Brock Purdy, he honestly had a terrible game. 17 for 31, 212 yards, and 3 interceptions. And Kareem Hunt, he had a good game. 22 carries for 78 yards and 2 TDs. And there were a few injuries in this game. Juju Smith-Schuster got hurt, I think. Deebo Samuel is out for the season, and Brandon Ayuk is out for the season. And the game was truly over when Mecole Hardman scored an 18-yard touchdown to give Kansas City a 16-point lead, and San Francisco pretty much didn't do anything outside of that garbage time touchdown and the failed 2-point conversion. So, yeah. San Francisco, I'm ashamed of you. I had my bets on you in this game, and you had to lose in the worst way possible. Next up, we have the Steelers winning against the Jets 37-15. Wow, this was a really entertaining game, despite the final score. Subway icon Russell Wilson had his first start as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he put up good numbers. 264 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was almost perfect in that game. And shout out to Najee Harris and George Pickens for having over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns each. And also shout out to Chris Boswell for scoring not one, not two, well, mainly 2 field goals. And Pittsburgh needed all of those field goals to basically win the game and make it a really impressive win. And meanwhile, for the Jets, Rodgers had a really frustrating game. 276 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And the only impressive play on the Jets' part was Breece Hall's touchdown in the first quarter. And also, Davante Adams, he had some catches in the first half, and he didn't have any of it in the second half. A really good game for him as his first game as a New York Jet. I really don't know who to blame at this point for the Jets. Is it Rodgers' fault? Is he washed? Is it bad coaching? We don't know, honestly. But still, congrats, Pittsburgh, for getting a win. Next up, we have the Ravens winning against the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football, 41-31. What looked like a competitive game quickly went great for Baltimore when the second quarter happened. And they pretty much win, mainly because Chris Godwin went out with an injury, and so did Mike Evans. And after Mike Evans got hurt, Baker Mayfield threw 2 terrible interceptions, which really gave Baltimore all the advantages that they need, and which caused Lamar Jackson to once again be in the MVP race. 17 for 22, 281 yards, and 5 touchdowns. It's really impressive numbers, honestly. Derrick Henry also played good. Rashad Bateman had a really good game. And I don't know what to say other than that. Tampa Bay looked good in the first half, and then everything just went downhill after that. Because right after the first quarter, it was all Baltimore until the fourth quarter. And also, shout out to Mark Andrews for getting 2 touchdowns. And yeah, I'm honestly hoping Chris Godwin and Mike Evans have a full recovery, and yeah, that's all I can say. And congrats, Ravens, for getting a win. You guys honestly deserve it. You guys whooped our butts, and it was honestly expected. So, good game. And last but not least, we have the Cardinals upsetting the Chargers on Monday Night Football, 17-15. Chargers, why? Why would you do this to me? I had my bets on you in this game, and you just had to make me look so dumb. 'Cause you guys didn't even score a single touchdown. The only points that were scored by you guys was Cameron Dicker. He scored 5 field goals. 5. I don't know what to say, honestly. I don't know who to blame at this point for the Chargers. Was it Herbert's lack of receivers? Was it play calling? I don't know. But as for Arizona, they had a really good game. The biggest highlight of the game was Kyler Murray's 44-yard run, which gave Arizona a 14-9 lead. And the game ended when Chad Rayland scored a 32-yard field goal as time expires to win the game. And also, James Conner had a really good game by leading in rushing and receiving yards, which is pretty impressive. So, congrats to James. And yeah, that's all I can say from this game. So, congrats, Arizona and Chargers. How dare you? I had my picks on you, and you guys just had to blow. You know what? I'm not going to explode again. It is what it is.